Whoa, this game looks super cool. I hope I don't make it my personality for the rest of my life. 5 to 8 hours later. I'm gonna make this my personality for the rest of my life. Off is the most Tumblr video game that I have ever played. And no, it's not just because the Electro Swing battle theme reminds me of a constant stream of reblogs of Caravan Palace's Lone Digger. No, it's because during my time browsing the site in the early 2010s, I would frequently see reblogs of art showing a baseball player either with ghosts or with a cat, sometimes both. I never paid too much mind to them, but the frequency of how often I saw this batter on my timeline made him stick with me. Turns out it wasn't just the people I was following that were blogging about Off. It was the whole site. Off was the 6th most Tumblred about game on the site in 2013. An amazing achievement on its own, when you consider that the top 5 were Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Kingdom Hearts, Zelda, and Mass Effect, you realize that Off was batting among the big leagues, even beating out Skyrim and Portal for that spot. At this point, Off was already 5 years old. It initially launched as a free PC game in 2008, but only in French, the native language of developer Mortis Ghost. However, those who discovered this game and understood what omelette du fromage meant loved it, and they loved it so much that they wanted to bring it to more people around the world. The first English translation was released in 2011, and after that, the game spread like wildfire across the internet. Off wasn't a game with a marketing budget, let alone a budget at all. It was just a side project. It made its rounds completely by word of mouth, spread by players that needed to share this experience with others. It made it to the top of Tumblr's reblog charts on Aura alone. Maybe Off got so much fan art due to how simple the characters were to draw, or because of how charming and well written they were. Maybe Off was receiving so many blog posts because of the music, or maybe it's because the game was so thought-provoking. Its impact on individual players can't be overstated, but one player that was especially impacted by it was Toby Fox, a name that you're likely familiar with by now. Off was one of Undertale's many sources of inspiration. Early concept art of Papyrus is eerily reminiscent of Dayton from Off's Zone 1. Some parts of Off's soundtrack supposedly inspired tracks in Undertale, with Pepper Steak and Ghost Fight having similar vibes. And both are RPGs with a meta-narrative about morality in games and the interference of the players themselves. Many folks thought Undertale was a groundbreaking game, but Off laid the foundation for it to do so. Any game inspired by Undertale can trace its DNA back to Off, so we wouldn't have many modern indies without it, and that includes Deltarune. While I've known about Off for over a decade, I haven't played it until just now. In case you didn't know, it received a re-release on Steam and Nintendo Switch for $15, and offers a handful of changes from the original. There have been balance changes, UI adjustments, new bosses, and, most controversially, a new soundtrack. The core game itself is largely unchanged though. Despite that, if I played this game without knowing it was released almost 2 decades ago, I could have believed this was just another modern indie title inspired by Undertale, not the other way around. There were even moments where this game reminded me of modern titles like PT or Amori, and then I realized Off predates both of those by years. Off just feels ahead of its time. The combat is engaging with a simple yet interesting typing system. Instead of your usual water, fire, grass sort of system, you have metal, plastic, smoke, and meat, the 4 elements that compose the surreal world of Off. There's no guessing about type effectiveness like in Persona either. In general, ghosts are weak to one type, monsters are weak to another, and so on. If you're ever unsure of a monster's weakness, the batter has an ability to see it, or you can also use the eye item. The party system also works really well. The batter's the only real character in the party. He's the heavy hitter who can use moves to do damage to enemies' weaknesses. As you traverse the zones of Off though, he collects add-ons, halos that can also participate in combat. By the end, you're joined by Alpha, Omega, and Epsilon. All 3 of them have different abilities, such as status effects, healing, or spread damage, but they never outshine the batter. Off's biggest strength isn't its combat though, it's the writing and world building. If you've never played, don't worry, I'm keeping this spoiler free. You control the batter, a pale figure dressed in a baseball uniform, on his quest to rid the world from specters. You receive guidance from a cat with an ominous smile as you explore a surreal, industrialized dreamscape in the batter's quest to purify each zone. The world building was striking, yet heartbreaking, and the direction the story goes in the end threw me for a loop. While I'll admit that some of the puzzles were a bit obtuse, and sometimes the random encounters did get annoying, that didn't sour my fun, and I could always reach out to a guide for help. This game was so influential on modern RPGs that it feels right at home in 2025. The original PC release is still free to download, and I'll leave the link in the description, but I think the re-release is worth the asking price just for being on Steam and Switch alone. The new bosses are really fun, and add a new twist to the combat. Their battles are less about brute forcing your way through enemies, and more of puzzles to be solved, making them feel thematically appropriate for such a thought-provoking game. Since Fangamer couldn't secure the rights to the original soundtrack, they had to create a new, original soundtrack, and I think they assembled a great team to do it. You know how Toby Fox drew inspiration from Off to make Undertale? Things came full circle, and now Toby has composed some new tracks for the Off soundtrack, including the battle theme. Many folks who played the original say the new soundtrack doesn't hit quite the same, but as someone whose first playthrough was in the 2025 release, I think it was a perfect fit. The new re-release of Off just goes to show how truly special this game was, and is. I hope that just how I gave it a chance due to its recent launch, more folks will be able to discover it too. Off is no longer a download shared across forums and blogs. It's a renowned title, available on a Nintendo handheld and the biggest PC storefront. It couldn't have gotten this far without the forum goers and bloggers of yesteryear though. Off became a cult classic because of its surreal atmosphere and gripping story, but it spread like wildfire because of its vocal fans. Without it reaching and inspiring folks like Toby Fox, we wouldn't have modern classics like Undertale, and the games it spawned as well. If you trace the roots of any modern indie RPG to its ancestors, you're almost guaranteed to get Off.